History is often remembered through battles, through dates, through victories carved into stone. We visit these places, we run our fingers over the engraved names, we feel the weight of the past, solid and undeniable. But some events never received a name. No monuments, no memorials, no day of remembrance on the calendar. Because what happened was not a single event, it was a process, a quiet, relentless process. And it was meant to be temporary, a transitional phase, a correction, and then forgotten. In the early 20th century, an age obsessed with progress and order, a strange phenomenon began. Across Europe, in the wake of empires collapsing and new states rising, entire communities began to fade from the official story. Not through dramatic war or violent exile, though those were the bookends, but through the tools of modernity itself, through paperwork. It started with a census, a simple count, but categories were shifted. A question of language became a question of preferred language, then of national affinity, then simply of nationality. Registers were updated, census lists were meticulously revised, property records quietly changed hands. A deed here, a title there, lost in the transfer of power from one administration to the next. It was bureaucratic, impenetrable. Families would wake to a new reality. On paper, in the eyes of the state, they had softly dematerialized. Their homes were administratively reassigned. Their occupations, blacksmith, teacher, farmer, were reclassified into new state-approved categories. Their very identities, generations deep, were reduced to footnotes, marginalia in the grand ledger of the nation. The authorities had a language for it: administrative correction, harmonization, standardization. It spoke of efficiency, of order, of building a coherent, modern society from the fragmented past. But behind this clean, clinical language was something colder, a system that had discovered a profound and terrible truth. If you remove a person not from a place, but from the record, their absence becomes invisible. A ghost leaves no body. And so, the erosion began, not with a bang, but with a form. Children came home from new schools with new names. Your old name, they were told, is difficult. It is a barrier to your future. The names of their grandparents became a source of embarrassment, a mark of the old, the backward. Languages were discouraged, not banned, not at first, simply rendered impractical. The language of the classroom, of the government office, of the official newspaper was different. The mother tongue became the language of the home, then of the kitchen, then of silent memory. A language for whispers and lullabies, until even those fell silent. Traditions, festivals, songs, ways of dress were labeled outdated, unnecessary, inconvenient to the new forward-marching tempo of the nation. Over years, over a generation, a profound silence replaced living memory. New towns were built on old foundations with new street names. New histories were taught in schools, streamlined and purposeful. New generations grew up in a world that felt whole, complete. They had no sense of what was missing. Not because the past had been violently ripped away, but because it had been meticulously, patiently edited out, redacted, like a sentence removed from a paragraph, leaving the text still readable, but its meaning subtly, irrevocably altered. There were no ruins to mark this change, no smoldering ashes, no walls pockmarked by bullets. The landscape remained, the rivers flowed, the mountains stood. The loss was not in the stone and soil, but in the map, in the registry, in the story. Only new forms to fill out, new names to recite. New logical explanations for why a family plot in a cemetery had strangely weathered, unreadable stones. An old dialect, they'd say. A clerical error from the old regime. And when a curious child, feeling a strange gap in their own story, dared to ask an elder, or when an old man, his mind wandering to the sound of a forgotten tune, posed a question to a local clerk, the answer, when it came, was always the same: a shrug, a puzzled frown, a definitive, gentle dismissal. You must be mistaken. There was never a church on that hill. That word, it means nothing. There was nothing here. The ultimate achievement of this machinery was not destruction. It was the creation of a void so seamless it didn't even look like emptiness. It looked like peace. It looked like normalcy. But history does not forget so easily. It is patient. It outlasts administrations. It waits. It waits in the one census form that was misfiled, not destroyed. A single sheet tucked in a wrong folder in a distant archive, preserving the old names. It waits in a handwritten letter, pressed between the pages of a Bible, sent across an ocean, speaking of a home the writers still dreamt of in a language their grandchildren can no longer read. It waits in the lullaby a grandmother hums, the melody persisting even when the words have faded. It waits in the recipe for a dish that has no name in the new language, but is still prepared on certain nights, filling the kitchen with a scent that feels like a question. Because erasure does not destroy the past, it only delays its return. It buries the seed, and seeds have a way of pushing towards the light, however faint. A researcher, decades later, cross-references two seemingly unrelated lists and finds a pattern of discrepancies, a ghost in the data. A musician collecting folk tunes stumbles upon a melody that fits no known canon. A person taking a DNA test receives a result that shows a genetic community that doesn't appear on any modern map. The silence begins to crack. This is the story not of a battle, but of a vanishing. Not of a conquest, but of a correction. This is the story of the people history removed without a trace, and the echo and the silence they left behind.